So we've talked a lot about the various ships of the Expanse, but today we're going to touch on the ship that really started it all, the Canterbury, the ice hauler present in the first season of the show. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So the Canterbury, as many of us know, is the ice hauler that is one of the original settings for the first season of The Expanse. But it actually has a longer and more interesting history than many people realize. So let's just start at the very beginning. The Canterbury was originally built as a colony ship designed to help colonize the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, but once that whole process has been done, it was sold to a company in the belt that intended to run ice. You see, the Canterbury was actually perfect for an ice hauler. It was really big. At 1,000 meters, it's one of the largest ships within the Expanse, at least for the first few seasons. The only ship that we really see on screen quite a bit that's larger is the Nauvoo, which would later become the OPA Behemoth and then Medina Station. So the Canterbury was purchased by Pure Clean Water Company. I assume that's some sort of belter reworking of the phrase pure and clean, but still, Pure Clean Water Company began converting the vessel to be an ice hauler. Once that conversion was complete, the Canterbury was pressed into service, hauling ice from the moons of Saturn and Jupiter into Ceres Station, where they could then be passed on to Earth and Mars, or distributed amongst the citizens of Ceres. It actually became one of the largest ice haulers working out there in the belt, and it became a symbol for prosperity for the people of Ceres. The arrival of the Canterbury would mean a lot of new ice, and as a result, a lot of new water, possibly, in many cases, easing the water sanctions that had been placed on everyone's daily lives. And the Canterbury actually carried out this role for quite a while. It used a large cargo bay at the front of the vessel to haul icy asteroids into the interior of the vessel, where crews on board could then carry out the rougher job of manually removing large chunks of ice and fastening them to the sides of this large open space inside the vessel so that they could be transported into Ceres for shipment elsewhere or sale. As for propulsion, it's driven by 4 Epstein drives, giving it a pretty decent speed for a ship of its size, although it can't compare to anything like a warship. And as far as armament goes, it was never armed. It was always a civilian vessel, be it a colony ship or an ice hauler. It's interesting to note, by the way, that the maximum acceleration the Canterbury could endure with its 4 Epstein drives was about 3 Gs. One other thing I want to throw out there is that the Canterbury actually did have a smaller embarked vessel on board, the Knight. The Knight served as a small scout shuttle to search for asteroid fragments and potential ice targets for the ship to go after, and it would likely serve as a landing vessel if the vessel needed to interact with the people of a world, be it one of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, or Earth or Mars, since the Canterbury certainly can't operate within an atmosphere, but the Knight probably can. And the Knight is the only reason why there were any survivors when the Canterbury was lost. Well, en route to Ceres, after a successful ice collection mission, the Canterbury discovered a distress signal from a vessel called the Scapulae. Dispatching the Knight with 5 crew members on board, the decision was made to attempt to rescue any survivors. However, when they arrived, they found that the Scapulae had been completely abandoned, and that the distress signal was likely ingenuine. It's around that time that the stealth vessel, the Anubis, an Amun-Ra class stealth vessel, launched a volley of torpedoes, not against the Knight, which was docked with the Scapulae, but against the Canterbury, which was getting a little too close. While the Canterbury tried to dodge these incoming shots, it was useless, and the Canterbury was ultimately destroyed. The Knight, however, did survive and went on to be collected by the MCRN Doniger, and was present on board the Doniger during its destruction. The destruction of the Canterbury, however, did have lasting effects on the system as a whole. Its destruction was seen as a great transgression against the people of the Belt, when it was believed that this attack was carried out by Mars or Earth, seeing as the stealth technology used in the attack was remarkably advanced. This led to a great deal of animosity, the people of Ceres and the rest of the Belt believing that Earth or Mars, or possibly both of them, were attempting to cut the Belt off from its supplies of water, and that would essentially doom the people of the Belt to dehydration and eventually death. This led to widespread riots and the beginning of a more invigorated OPA movement that sort of yearn for the destruction of the inner worlds, and in the long run, that led to the perfect environment for the rise of the Free Navy, Marco's extremist faction that ultimately did carry out devastating attacks against Earth and Mars. All in all, the Canterbury is a fascinating vessel with a really important place in the story of the Expanse, and while it often gets forgotten in favor for the sort of cooler warships, things like the MCRN's Scirocco or Morrigan class, or the Truman class of the UN, it's important to remember that a civilian vessel, the Canterbury, really led to the entire show's plot. And the ship that destroyed the Canterbury was fascinating as well, the Amun-Ra class stealth ship, the Anubis. And if you'd like to learn about the Amun-Ra class stealth ship, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And let me know down in the comments what you think about the Canterbury's story. Do you think it makes sense for the entire belt to be reliant on a handful of large ice haulers to carry ice in, or do you think that that supply chain should have been diversified a little bit? Would you expect companies like the Purin Clean Water Company to manage a couple other large vessels similar in size to the Cant, or do you think it makes sense for the Canterbury to be the only large vessel hauling ice in from the Jovian moons? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in the Expanse, leave it down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.